Have you ever thought about lessons we only learn when it's already too late? You know that feeling of, if only I had known this before. Hello, dear friends. Today I'm going to share with you 7 truths about family that I only understood at 75 years old. And believe me, I wish I had understood this much earlier, especially item 6, which completely changed my relationship with my children and grandchildren. If you're over 60 like me, these reflections can profoundly transform your family relationships before it's too late. Shall we begin? Item 1. The silence that destroys. Growing up, I learned that dirty laundry stays at home, and that keeping up appearances was a sign of a structured family. But do you know what this silence did? It created invisible walls between us. For years, I held on to grudges, failed to express concerns, and avoided necessary confrontations. The result? Superficial relationships and emotional distance that only grew with time. The solution isn't as complicated as it seems. Start with small emotional openings, like sharing a feeling about something from daily life. I felt sad when you didn't call on my birthday. Is much better than holding on to that hurt for years. Create a safe space for difficult conversations, perhaps a monthly lunch where important issues can be discussed without judgment. Remember, expressing feelings isn't a sign of weakness, but of courage and genuine love. And you know what I realized? Families that talk about everything, including what hurts, are much closer. If you're following along and identify with this communication difficulty, subscribe to the channel. I share practical tips weekly about improving our relationships after 60. Now, let's move on to the next point that took me so long to understand. Item 2, the illusion of infinite time. We'll talk later. I'll visit next holiday. Let's schedule lunch sometime soon. How many times have you said or heard these phrases? I used them for decades, living under the illusion that there would always be time to reconnect with distant relatives. But the painful truth I discovered at 70 is that time is finite and relentless. I lost the chance for reconciliation with my brother because I believed there was still time. He passed away before we could resolve our differences. What we can do differently: prioritize family gatherings as non-negotiable commitments, not as obligations, but as precious investments. Create a routine of contacts, even brief ones. A weekly 5-minute call is worth more than an annual visit. Use technology to your advantage. WhatsApp groups, video calls, or even voice messages keep the connection alive. And most importantly, understand that postponing reconciliations is a risk not worth taking. But wait, there's more. The next item may be the most common mistake we make after 60. Item 3. The trap of uncommunicated expectations. For years, I was disappointed when my children didn't act according to my expectations. I expected weekly visits, daily calls, gifts on specific dates, but I never clearly communicated these desires. Instead, I harbored resentment when they failed to meet expectations they didn't even know existed. It was as if I expected them to read my mind. The impact? Relationships based on assumptions, constant disappointments, and a growing cycle of unresolved hurts. Here are the solutions that transformed my relationships. Communicate your desires clearly. It would be important to me if we could have lunch together. Once a month is much better than waiting in silence. Ask about others' expectations. What would you like to be different in our relationship? Open space for honest conversation. Renegotiate expectations when necessary, understanding that everyone's needs change over time. What about you? Have you caught yourself expecting your family members to guess your feelings or desires? Share in the comments a situation where an uncommunicated expectation created conflicts in your family. I'd love to know how you handled it. Now, let's continue with something that completely changed my perspective on family. Item 4, the myth of the perfect family. I grew up watching The Waltons, Leave It to Beaver, and so many other shows that portrayed idealized families. This, along with comparisons to The Neighbor's Family that seemed to have no problems, created in me a relentless search for family perfection. The result? Years trying to hide problems, pretending everything was fine, demanding perfection from my children and myself. This pursuit of the unattainable only brought frustration and distance. At 75, I finally understood. Every family has its problems, difficulties, and secrets. Those that seem perfect are usually just better at hiding their challenges. Imperfection isn't just normal, it's what makes us human and gives us opportunities to grow together. accepting the limitations of each family. Members, including your own, creates space for more authentic and rewarding relationships. If you're enjoying these reflections and want to transform your family experience at this stage of life, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I share content like this every week, always focusing on our needs and challenges after 60. And you know what's even more interesting? The next point might completely change your perspective on family conflicts. Item 5, the invisible inheritance of family patterns. For decades, I repeated with my children exactly the same patterns that my parents used with me, even those I swore I'd never reproduce. The way of handling money, the phrases said in moments of anger, the difficulty in showing physical affection. It was only at 70, seeing my daughter repeating these same patterns with my grandchildren, that I realized. We carry an invisible inheritance of behaviors that passes from generation to generation, almost like an emotional genetic code. This recognition can be painful, but it's incredibly liberating. Identify negative patterns you reproduce. This reaction comes from my mother, or I'm speaking exactly like my father used to speak. Question each pattern. Does this behavior serve my current family? Is it building or destroying our bonds? Consciously create new patterns, even if it means navigating unfamiliar and uncomfortable territory. Forgive yourself for the patterns you reproduced without realizing. You did the best you could with the emotional tools you had. Do you recognize yourself in any of these family patterns? Can you identify behaviors that have passed from generation to generation in your family? Share in the comments. Your stories might help other members of this community. Now we come to item 6, the one I mentioned at the beginning that profoundly transformed my relationship with my children and grandchildren. Item 6, the value of forgiveness before it's too late. This was the hardest and most transformative lesson I learned. Unfortunately, too late with some people. For years, I carried grudges like trophies. As if my resentment could somehow punish those who hurt me, I held grudges against my sister for decisions made in dividing our parents' inheritance. I kept distance from a son because of life choices I disapproved of. I stopped speaking to a cousin because of harsh words exchanged in a moment of stress. What I didn't realize was the crushing weight these resentments had. Not on the people I blamed, but on myself. Each grudge was like a stone I carried, making my journey increasingly heavy. The transformation came when I understood. Forgiveness isn't a gift for the other person. It's a gift we give ourselves. It's freeing yourself from a burden that only we feel the weight of. Forgiving doesn't mean approving the behavior that hurt us. It simply means choosing not to let that hurt continue defining our relationship. Some relationships may need boundaries even after forgiveness, and that's healthy. Don't wait for the perfect apology. It may never come. Forgiveness is a unilateral decision for your peace. I began actively practicing forgiveness at 73. With some family members, I managed to rebuild wonderful bridges. With others, unfortunately, it was already too late. Don't make the same mistake I did. But wait, there's still the last item, which might be the most surprising of all. Item 7, the family we choose. The last and perhaps most liberating lesson I learned is that family goes far beyond blood ties. For years, I forced myself to maintain toxic relationships simply because it's family. At the same time, I neglected deep friendships that offered the support and love I so sought. At 75, I rediscovered the meaning of family. Family are the people who are present not only in moments of celebration, but also in difficulties. Family are those who respect your boundaries and values, even when they disagree with you. Family can include decades-long friends, attentive neighbors, and even members of community groups. How to apply this wisdom? Actively cultivate relationships that bring peace and joy to your life, regardless of whether they're blood relations or not. Establish healthy boundaries with relatives who consistently harm your emotional well-being. Create new rituals and traditions with your chosen family. This strengthens bonds and creates precious memories. Always remember, the quality of relationships is much more important than biological kinship. These 7 lessons about family took me 75 years to truly understand. The silence that destroys, the illusion of infinite time, uncommunicated expectations, the myth of the perfect family, invisible family patterns, the power of forgiveness, and the family we choose. I sincerely hope you don't need to learn these truths the hard way as I did. Each day is an opportunity to transform your family relationships. to heal old wounds, and to create deeper, more meaningful connections. If this video touched your heart in some way, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Next week, I'll share practical strategies for reconnecting with distant relatives, emotionally or geographically. And before we go, I'd like to know, which of these 7 lessons resonated most with you? Is there any wisdom about family you wish you had learned earlier? Share in the comments. Your experience might be exactly what someone in our community needs to hear today. Remember, it's never too late to build the family we dream of having. Even at 75, or especially at 75, when wisdom finally shows us what truly matters. Until the next video!